The stars were quiet on the edge of known space. Captain Ho stood at the observation window of his ship, the horizon's edge, watching the darkness stretch into forever. 30 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Union. 30 years of learning, growing, and finding their place among the stars. And still, the universe held secrets that no one wanted to share. The horizon's edge was a fast response vessel, small crew, quick engines built for trouble. Ho had commanded her for 6 years. He knew every sound she made, every vibration in her hull. Right now, everything was normal. Too normal. Patrol duty on the outer rim was supposed to be boring, but Ho had learned long ago that boring never lasted. Lieutenant Park Somi sat at her communication station, her eyes fixed on streams of data that would make most people dizzy. She was young, only 28, but her mind worked in ways that amazed everyone on the ship. She could find patterns in chaos. She could hear whispers in the screaming noise of space. Today she heard something strange. "Captain," Somi said, her voice careful and calm, "I have something." Ho walked over to her station. "What is it?" "A signal, very faint. It was hiding in the cosmic background radiation. I almost missed it." "Origin." Somi's fingers moved across her controls. A star map appeared on the main screen. A red dot blinked in a region marked with warning symbols. "The system, sir. It is listed as permanently quarantined." Navigator Dongwu turned from his station. He was the oldest member of the crew, a veteran who had flown ships since before first contact. His face showed concern. "Quarantined. That area has been off limits for as long as anyone can remember. The Union never says why." Ho studied the map. "What kind of signal, Lieutenant?" "That is the strange part, Captain. It is a Galactic Union emergency broadcast format. But this format was abandoned over 300 years ago. No one uses it anymore." The bridge went silent. 300 years. That was before humans even knew aliens existed. That was ancient history by galactic standards. "Play it," Ho ordered. Somi pressed a button. Static filled the bridge first, harsh and broken. Then voices came through. Alien languages that the translation system struggled to understand. Please. Screams. Words that needed no translation because fear sounds the same in every language. And then, underneath it all, something that made Ho's blood turn cold. Children crying. The sound was unmistakable. It did not matter what species made it. Every parent, every person with a heart, knew what a crying child sounded like. These children were terrified. These children were suffering. "How long has this signal been broadcasting?" Ho asked quietly. Somi checked her data twice before answering. "Based on signal decay and origin drift, approximately 200 years, sir." 200 years. For 200 years, someone had been calling for help. For 200 years, no one had answered. Ho walked to the command chair and opened a channel to Union Command. He reported the signal and requested information about the system. The response came within minutes, which was unusual. Command normally took hours to respond to anything. "Horizon's Edge, you are ordered to ignore the signal and continue your patrol route. The system is under permanent quarantine by Union Council directive. Do not approach. Do not investigate. Confirm receipt of orders." Ho stared at the message on his screen. Dongwu and Somi watched him, waiting. "Sir," Somi said, "what do we do?" Ho thought about the crying children. He thought about 200 years of silence. He thought about what kind of galaxy would hear such suffering and choose to look away. Dongwu, Ho said, "set a course for the system." The old navigator smiled. "Yes, Captain." "Sir," Somi said, "Union Command gave us direct orders." "I heard the orders, Lieutenant. I also heard children screaming for help. When I joined the fleet, I swore to protect the innocent. I did not swear to follow orders that abandoned them." Ho sat in his command chair. "Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship before we arrive can do so. I will not force anyone to come with me." No one moved. No one said anything. The crew simply returned to their stations and began preparing for the journey. The horizon's edge turned away from its patrol route and headed toward forbidden space. The trip took 4 days at maximum speed, 4 days of tension, 4 days of wondering what they would find, 4 days of listening to that terrible signal over and over, trying to understand every word. Somi worked without sleep. She pulled apart the signal piece by piece. She identified fragments of at least 12 different alien languages. Most of them belonged to species that no longer existed in the galactic records, extinct according to official history, wiped out by wars, disease, or simple disappearance. But the signal was not old in the way it should have been. The format was ancient, but the content was continuous. Someone was still sending it. Someone was still alive. On the fourth day, the system appeared on their sensors. It was a small system with one dying star and 3 planets. Nothing special. Nothing worth quarantining for centuries. Then the long-range sensors found something else. Captain Dongwu said, his voice strange. "You need to see this." The main screen shifted to show the 3rd planet. It was a medium-sized world, green and blue, clearly capable of supporting life. But something surrounded it, something that covered half the sky. It was not a moon. Moons did not have straight edges. Moons did not glow with artificial light. Moons did not have weapons platforms visible even from this distance. "What is that?" Somi whispered. Ho stood slowly, staring at the impossible structure that wrapped around an entire world like a cage. "That," he said, "is what the Union did not want us to find." The horizon's edge continued forward alone, carrying a crew of 40 humans into a mystery that had been buried for 300 years. Behind them, Union Command sent message after message, demanding they turn back, threatening punishment, warning of consequences. Ho turned off the communication channel. The signal kept playing. The children kept crying. And somewhere on that imprisoned world, someone was still hoping that help would come. After 200 years, help was finally on its way. The structure surrounding the planet was even more terrifying up close. It stretched across thousands of kilometers, a web of metal and energy that trapped an entire world inside. Captain Ho had seen many things in his years among the stars, but nothing like this. This was not built to protect. This was built to punish. Chief Medical Officer joined him at the observation window. She was a small woman with gentle hands and sharp eyes. She had spent 15 years healing people of all species. She had seen cruelty before, but even she seemed shaken. "The scans show approximately 50,000 life forms on the surface," she said quietly. "They are all concentrated in small settlements. No cities, no large structures, just survivors huddled together." 50,000, Ho repeated, "on an entire planet. Based on the planet's size and resources, it could support billions." Paused. "Captain, the medical readings are concerning. Malnutrition, disease, signs of genetic degradation from generations of limited population. Whatever species lives down there, they are slowly dying." Ho turned to his crew. "We go down, full landing party. Marines, medical team, and scientific crew. We need to know what happened here." Sergeant Han Woojin stepped forward. He was built like a mountain, tall and wide, with hands that could crush metal. But his voice was always gentle, always calm. "My Marines are ready, Captain. We will keep everyone safe." The landing shuttle left the horizon's edge and descended through gaps in the orbital cage. As they passed through, Somi monitored the structure for any response. It remained silent, watching but not acting. The planet's surface was beautiful and sad at the same time. Forests covered the land, but they were overgrown and wild. Rivers flowed clean and pure, but no boats traveled on them. Cities had once existed here, their ruins visible through the trees, but nature had swallowed them long ago. The shuttle landed near the largest life sign concentration. Within minutes, figures emerged from the forest, moving slowly toward the human visitors. Ho had met many alien species. He thought he was prepared for anything, but the beings who approached made his heart ache. They were called the. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed faintly with soft blue light. Their eyes were large and filled with an emotion that needed no translation. Hope, fear, disbelief. They moved like people who had forgotten what it meant to expect anything good. One of them stepped forward. She was elderly, her glow dim and flickering, but she walked with dignity, with the memory of pride. "You came," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "After all this time, someone came." Ho removed his helmet so she could see his face. "I am Captain Ho of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We received your signal. We came to help." The elder stared at him. Tears that glowed like liquid light fell from her eyes. "Human, I have heard stories of your kind. The ones who live on a planet that tries to kill them every day." She reached out and touched his face with trembling fingers. "You are real. You are truly here." Others gathered around, dozens of them, all thin, all fragile, all looking at the humans as if they were seeing a miracle. "Please," Ho said, "tell us what happened here. Who did this to you?" The elder's name was. She was the oldest living keeper of their history and their sorrow. She led them to a small settlement built from the ruins of a much larger city. Children watched from doorways, their glowing skin dim from poor health. Immediately went to work, scanning the young ones, her face growing more serious with each reading. 300 years ago, began, they were a proud civilization. We had beautiful cities, advanced technology, and dreams of exploring the stars. Then the Dominion of came. The name meant nothing to Ho. He had never heard of the. They were conquerors, continued. They swept across the galaxy, demanding submission from every species they found. Most surrendered. Those who resisted were destroyed, and those who surrendered but later rebelled. She gestured at the cage visible through the clouds. They received a different fate. The rebelled, Ho guessed. "We refused to give them our children." His voice grew hard. "They took the young of every conquered species. They claimed it was for education, for integration, but we knew the truth. They were building an army. They were turning children against their own people." They had said no. They had fought back against an empire that had crushed 100 worlds, and they had lost. "They did not destroy us," said. "Destruction would have been mercy. Instead, they built the cage. They sealed our entire world inside a prison designed to last forever. They left us enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. They wanted us to watch ourselves fade away, generation after generation, until the last died alone in the dark." "And the signal?" Ho asked. "We built the beacon in the first year. We begged for help. We called out to every corner of the galaxy." His voice broke. "No one came. The Galactic Union knew we were here. They always knew. But they were too powerful, and after the fell, the cage remained. The Union decided we were not worth the risk." Approached Ho with a tablet showing medical data. "Captain, the children are suffering from a parasitic infection. It is widespread and deadly, but it is also completely curable with basic medication. They have been dying from something we could fix in hours." Ho felt something burn inside him. 50,000 people, slowly dying for 3 centuries, and the entire galaxy had looked away. "We have the supplies," said. "Permission to begin treatment." "Do it, save everyone you can." They watched in amazement as humans moved through their settlement, setting up medical stations, distributing food, treating illnesses that had plagued them for generations. Children who had never known a day without pain felt relief for the first time in their lives. But their hope was short-lived. A deep hum filled the air. The ground trembled. In the sky, the orbital cage began to glow with new light, brighter and more dangerous than before. Somi's voice came through the communicator, sharp with alarm. "Captain, the cage is activating defensive systems. Weapons are charging. They are targeting the horizon's edge. His face went pale. The cage protects itself. Any ship that enters is destroyed. Any rescue attempt triggers the Guardians. Guardians, Ho demanded. Before could answer, the ground split open at the edge of the settlement. Metal shapes rose from beneath the surface, ancient machines with weapons built into their bodies. They were covered in dirt and rust, but their eyes glowed with awakened power. "The left soldiers behind," whispered. "They sleep beneath the ground, waiting for anyone who tries to help us. They have killed every rescue attempt for 300 years." The machines turned toward the humans, toward the children, toward the tiny flame of hope that had just been lit. Wu Jin moved forward, placing himself between the machines and the settlement. He raised his weapon and gave orders to his marines. "Hold the line," he said simply. Above them, the cage prepared to fire on their ship. Below them, ancient death machines awakened to finish what they had started 3 centuries ago. And somewhere in the middle, 40 humans stood with 50,000 and refused to run. The first blast from the orbital cage missed the horizon's edge by less than 50 meters. Navigator Dongwu threw the ship into a desperate spin, engines screaming as he pushed them beyond their limits. The second shot grazed the hull, burning through armor like paper. "Damage report," the first officer shouted. "Port side armor compromised. Engines at 80%. We cannot take many more hits." Dongwu's hands moved across his controls with the calm speed of a man who had been flying ships for 40 years. "But they have not killed us yet." The cage fired again and again. Dongwu dodged each shot with movements that should have been impossible for a ship of their size. He knew his vessel. He knew her limits. And today, he was going to find new ones. On the surface, the machines advanced toward the settlement. They moved slowly, their joints grinding from centuries of sleep, but they moved with purpose. 30 of them, each one the size of a small building, each one carrying weapons that had burned cities 300 years ago. Sergeant Han Wu-jin stood at the front of his defensive line, 12 Marines against 30 war machines. The math was not in their favor, but math had never stopped humans before. "Concentrate fire on the joints," Wu-jin ordered. "They are old, they are damaged, find their weak points." The Marines opened fire. Energy bolts struck the lead machine, burning through rust and ancient metal. The machine stumbled but did not fall. It raised one massive arm and fired back. 2 Marines went down, not dead but wounded badly. Ran toward them immediately, dragging them behind cover while plasma fire burned the air above her head. Captain Ho watched the battle unfold and made a decision. He activated his communicator and sent a message to Union Command, not a request for orders, a request for help. The response came within seconds. "Request: the system is under permanent quarantine. Any vessels that enter will face sanctions. Withdraw immediately." "There are 50,000 civilians here," Ho replied. "Including children, they are under attack." "The situation is a legacy issue. The Union Council has determined that intervention poses unacceptable risks. Your orders are clear, Captain. Leave now." Ho looked at the gathered behind the Marine line. Mothers holding children, elderly helping wounded, young people standing ready to fight with nothing but farming tools against machines built for war. "The Union knew," he said quietly to Elder. "All this time your people have been dying and they knew." Nodded slowly. "After the Empire fell, we hoped we would be freed. We sent messages, please, evidence of our suffering. The Union replied once. They said that freeing us might awaken defensive systems across the galaxy. They said the risk was too great. They said they were sorry." She did not sound angry. She sounded empty. She had lost the ability to feel betrayed long ago. Engineering Chief Ho came running from the shuttle, tablet in hand. He was young, brilliant, and completely unafraid of impossible problems. "Captain, I have been studying the cage's systems. It is incredibly advanced, but it is also very old. The control systems are centralized. Meaning? Meaning there is a single control node. Destroy it and the entire cage fails. The weapons, the force fields, everything shuts down. Hope flickered in Ho's chest. Where is this node? Ho pointed at the sky, at the massive structure orbiting above them. At the center of the orbital cage, heavily shielded, heavily armed, no single ship could get close enough to destroy it. One ship cannot do it, Ho agreed. But what about many ships? He turned away from his crew and walked to a small rise where he could see the whole settlement. They watched him. His marines watched him. Even the ancient machines seemed to pause, as if waiting for what came next. Ho activated his communicator on all human frequencies. Every human ship in the region, every station, every colony would hear his words. This is Captain Ho of the Horizon's Edge. I am currently in the system, which the Galactic Union has quarantined for 300 years. The reason for this quarantine is a lie. He paused, letting the silence carry his words across the stars. 50,000 people are dying here. They have been dying for 3 centuries. They called for help and no one came. The Union heard them and looked away. The galaxy forgot them, but I have seen their children. I have heard their cries, and I will not leave them. Another blast hit the ground nearby. Wujin's marines fell back, carrying their wounded, still firing at the advancing machines. The cage that imprisons these people can be destroyed. I have the data, I have the target. What I do not have is enough ships. I am asking for help, not from the Union, not from any government. I am asking every human who hears this message to come. Come and help us set these people free. He took a breath. The galaxy calls us. They say we are too aggressive, too stubborn, too willing to fight. They are right. We are all of those things, but we are also something else. We are the ones who do not abandon the helpless. We are the ones who answer when no one else will. Today I am asking them to prove them right. He ended the transmission. Stood beside him, her glow brighter than before. Will they come? I do not know, Ho admitted, but I had to try. Above them, the horizon's edge continued its desperate dance with death. Dongwu was running out of room to maneuver. The cage was learning his patterns, predicting his movements. Each shot came closer than the last. On the ground, 2 more machines fell to marine fire, but 3 more emerged from the earth. They had prepared well. They had expected rescue attempts. They had made sure none would succeed. An hour passed, then 2. The Marines held their line, but their ammunition was running low, had turned the main building into a hospital, treating wounded humans and side by side. Ho worked frantically to find any weakness in the machines, any way to slow them down. Ho stood among the, waiting, hopping, praying to whatever listened that he had not led his crew to their deaths for nothing. Then Somi's voice came through the communicator, and she was laughing. "Captain," she said, "you need to see this." Ho looked up at the sky. Ships were appearing at the edge of the system. First 1, then 5, then 20. Small ships, large ships, military cruisers, civilian transports, mining vessels with weapon platforms welded to their hulls. They came from every direction, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in flashes of light. "This is Admiral Shin, one of the 7th Human Defense Fleet," a new voice announced on the open channel. "Captain Ho, your message was received. Your request is granted." More ships arrived, dozens, then hundreds. An entire fleet assembled from nowhere, come to fight for people they had never met. "They have arrived," Admiral Shin continued. "Now let us show this cage what happens when you imprison the innocent." They began to weep. After 300 years of silence, after 200 years of calling into the void, someone had finally answered. The humans had come, and they had brought fury with them. The human fleet spread across the sky like an iron wall. Admiral Shin once stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Flame, watching data streams pour in from hundreds of ships. She had commanded fleets before. She had won battles that seemed impossible, but she had never seen anything like this response. They had come from everywhere. Military ships abandoned their patrol routes. Cargo vessels dropped their loads and attached weapons. Mining crews flew their massive rock breakers into formation. Private yachts showed up with families aboard, refusing to leave, demanding to help. An entire civilization had heard a single message and decided together that they would not allow this injustice to continue. "Status report," Admiral Shin ordered. Her aide read from a tablet. 473 vessels currently in system, Admiral, more arriving every minute. The Galactic Union has sent 17 formal protests demanding our withdrawal. The orbital cage has increased power to its weapon systems. Response to the Union. None yet, Admiral. What would you like to say? Shin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Tell them we are experiencing communication difficulties, solar interference. Very sorry, we will respond when possible. The cage opened fire on the approaching fleet. Its weapons were powerful, designed to destroy any ship that came close. But the builders had never imagined this. They had never imagined hundreds of ships swarming toward them like angry insects, each one willing to die if it meant the others could get through. Captain No Sung commanded the heavy cruiser Unyielding. It was an older ship, scheduled for retirement next year. Now it flew at the front of the formation, drawing fire away from smaller vessels. "Damage report," Sung called out as another blast rocked his ship. "Shields at 40%. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. Casualty count at 15. 15 dead. 15 people who would never go home." Sung felt each loss like a knife in his heart. But he did not slow down. He could not slow down, not while children were dying on the surface below. On the planet, the ground battle had become desperate. Machines continued to emerge from their hiding places beneath the earth. Sergeant Han Woo-jin had lost half his Marines. The survivors fought from behind hastily built barriers, trading shots with enemies that did not tire, did not fear, and did not stop. The fought beside them. They had no military training, no real weapons, but they picked up fallen tools and broken machines and used them anyway. 300 years of suffering had not broken their spirit. It had forged it into something harder than steel. Elder stood at the entrance to the children's shelter, a metal bar in her frail hands. She could barely lift it, but she would not leave. She would not let the machines reach the young ones without going through her first. "Hold the line," Woo-jin shouted. "Help is coming." As if to prove his words, the first human shuttle broke through the atmosphere. Then another. Then 10 more. Marines poured from them before they even touched down, running straight into battle with weapons blazing. Captain Ho led them personally. He had left the horizon's edge in Dong-woo's capable hands and come to the surface himself. Some battles needed a captain on the front line. "Push them back," he ordered. "Every meter we gain is another meter between those machines and the people we came to save." In orbit, the battle grew more intense. The cage's weapons cut through ships like a blade through paper. A transport full of volunteers exploded in a ball of fire. A mining vessel cracked in half, its crew venting into the cold of space. But for every ship that fell, 3 more took its place. Engineering Chief Ho had transmitted the cage's technical data to the entire fleet. Every captain now knew where the control node was. Every captain now understood the plan. Destroy the node, and the cage would die. The problem was the shields. The control node sat at the heart of the cage, protected by energy barriers that could withstand anything the human fleet could throw at it. Direct assault was suicide. The fleet needed another way. Admiral Shin studied the tactical display, looking for weaknesses, looking for angles. "Analysis?" she asked. Her tactical officer shook his head. "The shields are too strong, Admiral. We cannot penetrate them with conventional weapons. We would need to hit them with something much larger, something with enough mass and speed to overload the barrier. Such as? The officer hesitated. A ship, Admiral. A large ship at full speed. The impact would breach the shields long enough for the fleet to target the node directly. Everyone on the bridge understood what that meant. A ramming attack. No shields, no defense, just one ship driving itself into the heart of the enemy and dying so others could live. "I will not order anyone to do that," Admiral Shin said quietly. "You do not need to," a new voice said over the fleet channel. "I volunteer." It was Captain No Sung. His ship, the Unyielding, was already damaged, already dying. It would not survive the battle either way, but it could still serve one final purpose. "Sung," Shin said, "think about what you are saying." "I have thought about it, Admiral. I have thought about those children on the surface. I have thought about 300 years of unanswered cries. The Unyielding was built to protect people. Let her do it one last time." Silence filled the communication channel. Then, one by one, voices began to speak. The crew of the Unyielding confirming their captain's decision. They would not leave him. They would fly with him to the end. On the surface, worked without rest. Wounded were brought to her constantly. Human soldiers, civilians, even children who had been hurt in the chaos. She treated them all, her hands never stopping, her focus never breaking. A young girl lay on a treatment table, her glow fading, her eyes full of fear. Held her hand and smiled. "You are going to be fine," she promised. "I am going to make you better, and then you are going to grow up and see the stars, all of the stars without any cage." The girl's mother stood nearby, tears streaming down her glowing face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you fight for us? You do not know us. We are nothing to you." Looked up at her. "You are not nothing. You are people. You are mothers and children and dreamers. You are worth saving. That is all the reason we need." Above them, the Unyielding broke formation and accelerated toward the center of the cage. Weapons fired on it from every angle. Shields failed. Hull sections tore away. Explosions ripped through the ship. But it kept going. Captain Sung sat in his command chair, watching the control node grow larger on his screen. His crew was around him, some wounded, all determined. They had lived as soldiers. They would die as heroes. "It has been an honor," Sung said. "The honor is ours, Captain," his crew replied. The Unyielding hit the shield barrier at full speed. For one terrible moment, ship and barrier fought each other, energy against mass, technology against will. The ship crumbled. The crew died, but the barrier cracked. And through that crack, the fury of humanity poured in. Every ship in the fleet fired at once. Hundreds of weapons, all aimed at the same point, all striking together. The control node exploded in a blast of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. The cage went dark. The weapons stopped firing. The force fields collapsed. On the ground, the machines froze in place. Their eyes flickered once, twice, and then went black. They stood like statues, their purpose ended, their masters long dead. The battle was over. They were free. Silence fell over the world for the first time in 300 years. The hum of the cage had been constant, a sound so ever-present that they had stopped hearing it. Now it was gone, and the silence was beautiful. Elder walked out of the children's shelter and looked up at the sky. The cage was still there, but it was dark now, dead metal floating in orbit. Ships moved through its remains, human ships, carrying medical supplies and food and hope. She fell to her knees and wept. Captain Ho found her there, tears of light streaming down her face, her body shaking with 3 centuries of released grief. He knelt beside her and waited. There were no words for this moment. Words would come later. Now was a time for feeling. The first medical transports landed within hours. Doctors from across human space had volunteered, dropping everything to come help. They brought medicine, equipment, specialists in every field. The diseases that had plagued them for generations were treated. The malnutrition was addressed. For the first time in living memory, children went to sleep without pain. Worked for 30 hours straight before Ho ordered her to rest. She refused until she had personally checked every child in the main settlement. Only then did she allow herself to sleep, collapsing onto a cot beside a mother who held her hand through the night. The Galactic Union sent formal condemnation of humanity's actions. They demanded withdrawal. They threatened sanctions. They warned of consequences. Admiral Shin One read each message carefully, then deleted them without response. A tribunal was convened. Shin was summoned to answer for her unauthorized military action. She went willingly, standing before a panel of Union judges who looked at her with disapproval. "You violated direct orders," the head judge said. "You entered a quarantine zone. You engaged in combat operations without authorization. You have destabilized relations between humanity and the Galactic Union." Shin stood straight and spoke clearly. "I saved 50,000 lives. That does not excuse your actions." "I am not asking to be excused. I am asking you to look at what you allowed to happen. For 300 years the Union knew about the. For 300 years you chose to let them die. You are not here to judge me. You are here to explain yourselves." The tribunal went silent. Across the galaxy the hearing was broadcast live. Billions watched. Billions learned what the Union had done. Billions asked why. They were invited to speak. Elder stood before the tribunal, frail but unbroken, and told her people's story. She described the day that came. She described the centuries of imprisonment. She described the signal they sent into the darkness, hopping, praying that someone would hear. 200 years, she said, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the room. For 200 years we called for help. We did not ask for warriors. We did not ask for revenge. We only asked for someone to notice that we existed. The Union heard us and looked away. The humans heard us and came running. She turned to face the human delegation. "My people do not have words for what you have done. In our language, there is no concept for strangers who die for strangers. There is no way to express gratitude for those who sacrifice everything for people they have never met." She paused, her glow brightening. "But we will learn. We will create new words. And we will teach them to our children and our children's children until the stars themselves forget what once was." The tribunal ruled against Admiral Shin. She was formally reprimanded, stripped of one rank, and assigned to administrative duty. The Union hoped this would send a message. It did, but not the message they intended. Within weeks, Shin became the most famous human in the galaxy. Songs were written about her. Children played games where they pretended to be her fleet. Other species whispered about the humans, who would throw away their careers, their safety, their lives to save strangers. On the world, reconstruction began. Humans stayed to help, refusing payment, refusing recognition. They built hospitals and schools. They helped clear the ruins of old cities and planted new gardens in their place. They did it because it needed to be done, and because doing it felt right. Ho remained for 6 months. He watched them emerge from their long nightmare and begin to dream again. He saw children laughing in sunlight, running through fields without fear. He saw elderly standing outside at night, looking at stars they had never thought they would see up close. On his last day came to him. She moved more easily now, her health improving with proper care. She still glowed faintly, but her light was stronger, steadier. "You are leaving," she said. "I have to. There is more work to do." She nodded slowly. "The Union has many quarantine zones, many forgotten places." "Yes." "Will you go to them?" Ho looked up at the sky, where human ships still moved among the wreckage of the cage. "If they call for help, we will answer." Took his hand. Her touch was warm, her glow wrapping around his fingers like gentle flame. "Then let me give you something, a gift from my people to yours." She pressed a small device into his palm. It was a signal beacon, ancient technology, the same kind that had called across 200 years of silence. "If you ever need help," she said, "send this signal. The will come. We will find new ships. We will learn to fight. And we will stand beside the humans who stood beside us." Ho looked at the beacon, then at, "Thank you." "No, Captain, thank you. You gave us back our future. We will spend the rest of our existence earning that gift." The Horizon's Edge left the system 3 days later. Somi sat at her communication station, monitoring channels out of habit. The crew was quiet, tired, proud. They had done something that would echo through history. They had proven that humanity was more than just. They were protectors. A signal appeared on Somi's screen. She frowned, leaning closer. It was faint, buried in noise, easy to miss. But her trained ears caught it. Another distress call. Another ancient format. Another voice crying out from a forgotten corner of the galaxy. "Captain," she said, "you need to hear this." Ho walked to her station and listened. The signal was weak, broken, desperate. Different language, different species, but the same message. "Help us, please. Someone help us." He looked at his crew. Dongwu at the navigation console, in the medical bay. Wujin checking on his marines, all of them exhausted, all of them willing to keep going. "How far?" Ho asked. 7 days at maximum speed. It is in another quarantined zone." Ho closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the Union and their rules. He thought about the consequences. He thought about children crying in the dark, waiting for someone to notice them. He opened his eyes. "Set course." The Horizon's Edge turned toward the signal and flew into the darkness. Behind them, watched them go, their glowing forms bright against the night. Ahead of them, another world waited, another prison, another species that had given up hope. They were coming. Across the galaxy, in quarantine zones and forgotten corners, ancient signals continued to broadcast. They called out to emptiness, expecting nothing. They had been calling for so long that hope had become a distant memory. But something had changed. Word was spreading. Stories were being told. A new truth was rippling through the stars. They were listening. They remembered. And heaven help anyone who stood between them and the innocent.